What's going on, everybody? Oh man, welcome back to Mondays with Matt. For everybody watching this on YouTube, guys, welcome. So happy to have you here as well. Please take a second if you haven't yet and hit the little subscribe button with this show and hit the little bell so you can get notified on all my new YouTube videos that I'm uploading all the time. I'm taking all my Facebook stuff and I'm bringing it over to YouTube. I'm also making lots of my own content, and be sure to wait till the end, guys. For those of you watching on YouTube, I will be giving some of my best content here towards the end. I am so excited to have you here, right? This is my show where basically every week I talk about personal development, leadership, spirituality, emotional intelligence, all the things that I'm passionate about. This is all basically me just sharing what I'm learning and what I'm experiencing in real time. I'll tell you what's up. What's up is I'm leaving Dallas, okay? And that kind of goes into the theme of what we're talking about today, coming full circle. Coming full circle, and we're going to talk a little bit about what that means and what the relevance of that concept is. Coming full circle. For now, y'all, it's time for me to go, and it's time for me to close a very large loop. And this is what I want to sort of unpack with you guys and explore the concept of coming full circle, right? Because what's a circle? A circle is a loop. I think that our lives, and tell me if this resonates with you, or let me know what this means to you. I think our lives move in circles, cycles and circles. And so often what we do in our lives and in the journey of our lives is we open a loop, right? We open a circle and we go out. It's kind of the hero's journey, right? We go out into a loop, and then gradually we reach the far side of it, and then we come back around and we end up back where we started, but we're different, right? I think that our lives, and I think this works in all parts of our lives, so let me know if this is something that you've experienced in your own life, because I think these loops happen in all areas of our life. I think we have loops in relationships, right? Like relationships have a beginning, and then a middle, and then an end. You know, and a lot of times with relationships, don't we kind of end up back where we started, and we look at each other like, this has been an incredible journey, and now it's sort of like it's come to an end. And I think that can happen in all parts of our life. I think that our lives are a series of loops, and that so much of what it means to be powerful and to really create closure in your life is to be able to go out and come full circle in your life, and then realize, even though you've come back to where you started, you're different, right? Where does this show up in your life? Where does the concept of coming full circle show up in your life? I'd love to hear from you. And guys, if this resonates with you in a relationship context or in the context of professional journeys you've gone on in your life. One big loop that I did was the loop of Habitude Warrior, right? Where I started by randomly coming to a Habitude Warrior conference last April. And then this April, I came all the way back around. So I went to one conference, then I ended up driving to Houston, doing a conference there, doing this all over the country, speaking to tens of thousands of people all over the country. And then before you know it, I looped back around and I ended up back emceeing my last Habitude Warrior conference. That was a loop. That was a circle, and I came full circle. And who I was at that last Habitude Warrior conference was so dramatically different than who I was at the beginning. Almost unrecognizable, because that loop, the journey I went on in that circle, I grew and evolved so profoundly. And it's so beautiful how you come back around, and when you get back to that starting place, you're so radically expanded. Right? So what can we learn? What loop are you on in your life? What are you coming back to? Because so often I think we have a tendency to look at us coming back to where we started, and we think we haven't grown because we're ending up back where we started. But we have. We are completely different. I think relationships are a powerful loop that we can have, right? And so even though relationships have a beginning, a middle, and an end, we're different when they end than where we began. And that relationship, no matter what role it played in your life, you expanded, you grew, you learned from that. And even though it ends where it starts, with maybe you two looking at each other like you're strangers in a way, neither of you are the same. You both had a profound impact on each other's lives. So what are other places where we have loops in our lives, guys, where we come full circle and we really get to look at? Because I think one of the most powerful parts of coming full circle is reflecting on what you learned along the way, what you learned in the journey. And there's different scales of loops, right? So that one, the Habitude Warrior thing, that was one smaller loop for me. I'm about to close a very, 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 very big loop though. I'm about to come very much full circle because 9 years ago, I left Florida to go out to California to take over a failing restaurant in San Diego, okay? That was a huge journey. I had no idea where that journey was going to lead me. I had no idea what was going to happen to me. I thought I was going to end up a rich and famous business owner, like a rich and famous restaurateur. That was going to be my thing, right? And I left and I started that loop 9 years ago as a 28-year-old kid, 29-year-old kid. I had no idea what was going to happen. Yeah, I was 28. And I fucking flew to California to take over a restaurant. And that experience was formative. That experience was transformational because it began a massive loop during which I owned a restaurant. I worked 100 hours a week. I became a drug addict. I had a spiritual awakening. I worked for a spiritual healer. I traveled the world with him. Then I became a professional speaker. And I traveled the country speaking to thousands of people. Along the way, in this loop, guys, this loop of the last 8 years, I discovered who I was. I learned what was possible for me. It was the loop of my self-realization, of my self-actualization. I left Florida an anxious, nervous, sort of basket case, no idea who I was, no idea what was coming for me, only that I wanted to go to California and I was going to see what happened. I had no idea the size of the loop that I was embarking on. And I return 9 years later back to Florida to see my parents. And I'm so fundamentally different. I have expanded so deeply that it's like indescribable. And what's so powerful, guys, is a lot of times when we embark on a loop, we don't know when we're going to get back. We don't know when we're going to come full circle. But there's nothing wrong with coming full circle. There's nothing wrong with ending up back where you started. That's something I really want to impress upon you. Because I'm not going to be in Florida forever, but I think it's powerful to sort of check back where you started, because then you can really get a barometer of how far you came. And I can really look back and reflect on everything I learned along the journey, everything I learned along that loop, everything that came full circle from me. And I think that the key to really creating profound results in your life is to really take stock of how many times in your life have you come full circle. In your life, in your relationships, in your career, in different aspects of your world, right? And then have you learned from these loops? Because guys, these are patterns, right? If we don't learn from the loops in our lives, if we don't learn when we come full circle, then we're not gonna create results. We're not gonna learn from our mistakes. Because don't you know people in your life that just keep looping the same pattern over and over and over and over and over again? They have the same kind of relationships. They have the same crappy job experiences. They make the same mistakes. They have the same self-sabotaging behavior. And they just are like, they're just broken records, looping the same stuff over and over again. That is one way. That's what happens when we don't learn from our loops. You got to learn from your loops. When you end up back where you started, you got to ask yourself, was this a journey that I enjoyed? What did I learn from this? And what do I want to change the next time around? Because I'm telling you, I think one of the things we can do profoundly in our life is every time we come full circle, we can make a bigger loop the next time. I think our lives get to be kind of like, you know how the rings in a tree are ever growing and becoming more and more and more wide and profound as the tree grows? I think the loops of our life get concentrically bigger as long as we learn from them. Where people get stuck is where they keep doing the same loop over and over. Give me a 1 if you know people in your life that keep just looping the same pattern over and over and over and over. They stay in the same town, making the same mistakes, hanging out with the same people, and they never make an effort to learn from that loop so they can open up a bigger one. We all have people in our lives that just keep running that same track, that same loop. And then they wonder, like, why is my life not fulfilling? Why is it so damn boring? Why am I around the same people? Well, it's because you're stuck in the same pattern, because you're in autopilot, because you're not self-reflecting. Because you're not realizing that every time you come full circle, you have an opportunity to change. You have an opportunity to grow. You have an opportunity to learn. One powerful way to do this is every time, like say you go home for the holidays every year, that's a beautiful opportunity to self-reflect, because that's its own loop. Anytime you come back to a familiar check-in point in your life, like a birthday is a great full circle point. Right? Because every birthday, it's like that familiar thing. This is a day where I hang out and I celebrate with people. And you can check in with yourself and be like, okay, well, it's been a year. What did I learn on this loop? What do I have to do to close this loop in a powerful way? What do I want to do next year that I didn't do last year? You got to have a check-in process with yourself. And the bigger the loop, the more important it is to check in. Like say you get done with a 15-year marriage. That's a big loop. That's a big loop to check in with, right? Like we really get to take time and energy to check in with ourselves and ask, what did I learn on this loop that I want to use to build an even bigger loop next time? How can we come full circle? If we were to consider this to be a loop right now for you in your life, what have you learned? How can you grow? What do you want to shift for the next one? Because I'm going back to Florida, ending a 9-year loop in my life. And I know that this is going to be the starting point and the launching point of a much, 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 much bigger one. I think the next loop that I'm about to go on is going to take me around the world. I think it's going to take me on a global adventure, right? Because my loops have been getting bigger and bigger. I did a loop around Florida while I was in school. I went to college in UF. I went to law school at Florida State in Tallahassee. Then I was a lawyer down in Miami, and then I came back to Sarasota. I did a little loop in Florida. Now I did a loop across the country, where I went to California, and then I went to Texas, and now I'm coming back to Florida. Now I get to do another loop. And I think I'm going to do a loop around the world. What exactly it's going to look like, I don't know. But I think it's going to be huge. Where am I going to end up? I don't know. But I know I'm going to learn a lot. And I know that I'm going to reflect on that journey. And I know that wherever I go and however it turns out, I'm going to always work to stay in alignment. Always, right? Because we always have a choice, and we always get to ask ourselves, is where I'm going and what I'm doing in active alignment, or is it not? Are we looping back and are we learning from our mistakes? Are we learning from our experiences? Or are we on autopilot repeating the same patterns regardless of whether they serve us or not? It happens to everyone, guys. And the difference between people who grow and expand and increase their capacity and serve more people and become self-actualized, and the people that don't, are whether or not they're reflecting on their loops, or whether or not they're recognizing the patterns and they're interrupting the ones that aren't serving them and implementing new ones that are. That's the key, guys. That's the key, and that's what so many people miss out on. And I want every single one of you, give me a 1 if you're committed to reflecting on the loops in your life and asking yourself, as you come full circle, what did I learn and what do I want to change? Give me a 1 if you're committed to that. I want to see each and every one of you guys get out there and really ask myself, at what point in the loop am I at? And a couple other valid and important points about that is when you embark on a loop, when you embark on a journey, you're not going to necessarily know where you're going, okay? That's a very important part. I think a lot of people don't even go on conscious loops because they're afraid of even taking that first step. It's very important to recognize that you don't know where you're going to end up when you embark on a loop, and that's okay. It's okay to not know where you're going. It's okay to not knowing where you're going to end up. You just get to go. When you determine that something's in alignment or that you need to shift, that you need to get out of there, you get to just go. and trust and have faith that God or the universe or whatever you want to call it is going to bring you back around, right? That you are going to bring yourself back around. You get to trust in yourself. What faith means is being able to step out into the unknown, knowing that you're supported, knowing that you're cared for, and knowing that there are things that you're meant to learn out there in the world. And that's the key, guys. Looping is something that's going to happen to each and every one of us. The question is, do you want to make conscious loops, or do you want to make unconscious autopilot pattern repeat loops like so many people out there? I used to be in super toxic patterns and loops in relationships. I would date the same sort of toxic people over and over and over and over again because I wasn't conscious of my patterns. I wasn't conscious of how my beliefs and my worthiness conversations were keeping me in a loop of unhealthy relationships. And everything changed for me the moment that I made that recognition and I said, no more. I'm never going to do that again. Right? And so that's something that we really get to look at. What are our loops? What are our patterns in our relationships, in our job, in our life? Because if we can interrupt the ones that aren't serving us and integrate more that are, we're going to have more fulfilling lives. Because life isn't a linear journey. It's not just a steady slope. Life is a series of loops. It's a series of ever-increasing patterns that we have the capacity and the ability to control, right? We have the capacity and the ability to manage the way we respond and integrate our patterns and our loops, all right? And so as I get ready to leave Dallas, which has been a beautiful loop in my life, I'm looking back on what I learned from this chapter of my life. I'm looking back on all the things that I experienced here in this beautiful city, right? And this city has been the place, it's where I really came into, if I were to talk about like what I learned in Dallas, what I learned in Dallas is the value of recognizing alignment. The value of recognizing when my life isn't serving me. The value of shifting into alignment. And at the end of the day, that's all that matters. If Dallas taught me one thing, it's that the greatest act of courage you can have in your life is to look at your life and realize when it's time to radically shift your trajectory, to come back into alignment. That was what Dallas taught me, amongst many other things. You know, Dallas will always hold a special place in my heart. Just because a loop ends doesn't mean that you don't get to cherish what you experienced on it. It doesn't mean that those experiences aren't always going to be alive in you. Like the experiences I had in Houston and in Dallas and in California, they're now a part of who I am. Every loop that you have is a part of who you are. Just because the loop ends doesn't mean that the experiences die. They're always going to be a part of you. And you get to decide what part of you they are. You get to decide if the experiences that you've had are anchors and pain that weigh you down and debilitate you, or whether they're expansive, beautiful experiences that help lift you up. You have that choice. It's how you frame these experiences. It's how you integrate them into your character. It's how you integrate them into your consciousness. You have the ability to manage your relationship with your loops, to manage your relationship with the experiences of your life. And the way you frame those, the way you choose to interpret them, and the way you choose to integrate and implement them into your life is going to make all the difference in the world. Melissa is ready for a radical shift. Melissa, I would go so far as to say you are having a radical shift, my dear. Melissa's in the middle of a radical shift and a radical transformation. And I think that's another valid point that I want to bring up along that, is when you're in the middle of a particularly tough loop, all you need to know is it is coming back around. No matter how tough things get, no matter how gnarly things get, no matter how much resistance you're feeling, how much crisis you're feeling, you have to trust that that loop is coming back. And it will come all the way back around eventually. And if you can just have faith in that and trust in yourself, you have no idea what's waiting for you at the end of that loop. But it's up to you to keep going, guys. That's the thing. The only way you can stop a loop is to stop going. And there's the thing. You want to get to the back end of it so you can realize what you learned. so you can have that experience. So guys, that's really what I want to cue in on today, and I want to leave you with that because I got to go pack, all right? I got a ton of stuff I still have to do before I get to finish closing this loop here in Dallas. But I wanted to say that this is the end of a massive 9-year period of my life where everything is coming full circle. And I'm going to be coming back into a familiar situation, but I'm going to be a radically different human. And this isn't me backtracking, and this isn't me taking a massive step backwards. This is me taking a breather before I embark on my next vast circle in my life. And the bigger the circle you make, the bigger an impact you make, the bigger you can expand your life, and the more beautiful and the more fulfilling your life will be. So I hope, guys, that this resonated with you. I hope that you look at the loops in your life, that you look at the circles that you've made, and you look at where you are in your current one, and you ask yourself, what have I learned? What have I experienced? And how am I going to integrate this into my world, right? Thank you so much for tuning into Mondays with Matt. I hope you've enjoyed my last Dallas show. Dallas, Houston, all my beautiful Texas friends, thank y'all very much. I have loved you all dearly, and I will always keep you in my heart. That was my terrible Texas accent. Kimberly West, thank you so much, my dear. It's been such an honor being in Texas. I will never forget the kindness and the hospitality that y'all have showed me over the past 8-9 months. Texas has been just an incredibly formative, beautiful experience, and it's because of the people that I met there. So I am eternally grateful for all my Texas family, and just know that I will never forget you guys, and I will never forget this loop in my life, because it has been fundamentally, transformatively beautiful for me, and I will forever be grateful. So have a wonderful, wonderful week. I will see you next week on Mondays with Matt from Florida, from Sarasota, Florida. Mom, I think, what's the song? Mama, I'm coming home. For a little while, Mama, you better have the chocolate cake and all of your delicious food ready, because I'm going to be eating all of it here shortly. So have a wonderful week, guys, and I will see you from Florida next week. Lots of love. Bye-bye.